Today we're going to talk about the wonderful atmospheric horror film Rosemary's Baby. Now, one of the things that is probably my favorite thing about the film is the theme. The theme has kind of a haunting voice of a woman, and it just kind of sets you up for the mood and leaves you a bit off kilter. But one thing that I really get a kick out of in the book versus the film is that in the book, down the hall from Rosemary and her husband is a couple who share my last name. They are a homosexual couple with the last name of DeVore and DeVore. So I always found that entertaining that my last name is in Rosemary's Baby. It's spelled slightly different though. It has an E on the end instead of just the R. But it's you don't see DeVore that often used in literature, so I kind of get that for like Back to the film though. Mia Farrow, of course, is perfect as the kind of waif-like, innocent housewife traversing down this unusual path of motherhood. Her husband, John Cassavetes, in the film is really masterful at playing just kind of a actor who is more interested in his career than his wife and soon-to-be pregnant wife. But honestly, the whole film is stolen by the lady that plays the little old lady who starts introducing Rosemary to the things that allow her to be more apt to be impregnated by the devil. This woman is just over the top. She sounds like, everyone's Jewish grandmother, which also is another reason that you kind of get lulled into this thing, this little old lady really cares about Rosemary and stuff, and no, not at all. She actually is just wanting to enact her big plan as part of this black magic witches coven trying to increase the likelihood that the Antichrist is going to come to Earth. Which, in the 1960s and 1970s, witchcraft had a very bad rap. It still, especially in America, had the idea that all witchcraft was evil, all witches were in league with Satan, etc., etc., etc. Unfortunately, at the time, publishing, while there were books out there that, went against that idea, and there had been scholarly information done on world religions and the relationship to Christianity, there was still this big stigma that witchcraft meant you're in league with the devil, because that's what the Christian church teaches no matter what type of Christianity you belong to. Nowadays, I think there is, since there are more people that are atheists, they are more apt to definitely be like, okay, witchcraft's just another religion, so on and so forth. Then you have, Satanists who are atheists, who just don't believe in any type of religion and take the name Satanist and use that as a way to get people's attention to bring about information on basic human rights. Then you have the Satanists that truly believe in magic, but they aren't running around sacrificing animals and, doing that type of thing. They're just essentially witches who kind of follow a darker path. The problem with that movie, in relation to all this information and the way that things are thought of now versus then, is that now, when you watch the film, if you happen to be a witch, or pagan, or a Satanist, you're going to be highly offended, actually, that, this whole idea that, oh my god, these are the people that are going to bring the devil to earth, like, right now, and, like, horribly abuse this wonderful woman and allow her to get raped and all this other stuff. Yeah. At the time, though, it was horrific for the people, especially in America, because most Americans were Christian. And they went to the church, regularly. So you have this idea that Satan is the big baddie and he's going to cause all manner of havoc on the world and cause the end of days and so on and so forth. So with that, it was like a huge freak out that here was this book and movie that was all about this poor woman being forced to deliver the Antichrist. When you look at, the history of stuff too, though, it's kind of funny because there was this wave of Antichrist films. Because there was Rosemary's Baby, then of course there was The Omen that actually featured the Antichrist running around. It's kind of funny when you think about it, especially like looking through a backwards lens. And, in a way, it was kind of funny when they did the remake of The Omen and had it release on June 6th of 2006. That was kind of a clever marketing tool. But the remake of Rosemary's Baby kind of flopped. And part of that, I think, is because, most people don't believe in, at least most people in America, aren't, enveloped in the Christian church. So there's, a large portion of people that don't find this story scary. There's also a large group of people that find this highly offensive. The other thing is that, nothing against the actors that were in the remake, but I really, really feel they need to stop doing all these remakes. Fans of these films are sick of them. Number one. Number two, when you have a film that is extremely well done, it's hard to top that. It's practically impossible to top it. It'd be like somebody saying, well, I'm going to recreate Michelangelo's David, and then be upset that everybody didn't think it was as good as the original. You can't recreate art. Not like that. You can try and put your own spin on it, but people are still going to compare it to the original, which is why it's better to create your own original art and be inspired by something else, but not make it exactly the same. That's my little rant on remakes. But back to the original film. For those who have not seen it, it's about this young woman and her husband. They are relatively newlyweds. The husband is an actor in New York, and he's been having trouble getting roles. And Rosemary discovers that, she's trying to get used to living in this new apartment because it's kind of a fancier apartment, and her husband are trying to make, arrangements and stuff for in the event they start a family, but the husband isn't that keen on it yet because he is still all about his career. But they're also dealing with the fact that there's not a lot of money coming in because he's having trouble getting parts. And Rosemary is the classic 1960s stay-at-home housewife. She sort of loosely discusses going to get a job, which her husband is very adamantly against because he's supposed to be the breadwinner. So you have all these little things going around, and then Rosemary ends up meeting the overbearing neighbor who is an elderly woman and her husband. And they are eccentric. And that is an understatement. But they are overpoweringly eccentric. In a way that, you have a grandmother that smothers you. Eccentric. Then Rosemary meets this young woman who lives with the elderly couple. And she's supposed to have been a drug addict that they have helped rehabilitate, and she's just trying to get on her feet and everything. And Rosemary and her husband go out for dinner, and they come home and find that this woman has killed herself. She's jumped out of this tall window in the apartment building and has, died. And the elderly couple are, horribly upset and everything. But you start getting closer and closer into this creep factor because things start unfolding that show that the elderly couple aren't that nice. And there is a reason that this girl killed herself. So, I'm not going to spoil the ending. It's out there if you want to read it. I'm sure the clips are probably on YouTube somewhere. I think you should probably just watch the film. That's me personally. It is old. It is dated by today's standards, which is probably why they decided to do a remake, but that didn't work, as I said previously. But there's enough there that you're going to understand what's going on. It's not like, trying to understand Puritan life or anything, God knows. But it's an interesting take on motherhood in that there's very few stories about women and how they deal with the changes happening in their bodies, and then how society relates those changes to their own sanity. And, because it's a general thing with women for them to chalk up, well, she's on her period, she's on PMS, that's why she gets mad, blah, blah, blah. Same thing with pregnant women. The idea is that, oh, their hormones are out of whack, so they're crazy, ooh. No. Now, yes, hormones will make a woman sometimes get a little grouchy. Of course they're grouchy. They have something growing in them and stretching their organs out of shape and stuff. You try doing that, that's not a fun time. But grouchy does not equate to insane. And I think that's a very important thing to talk about. And not to say that people that don't have mental illnesses don't lead, perfectly normal lives. They do. But the idea that a woman in and of herself, just because she's going through either her monthly cycle or is pregnant, is insane, is insulting. And also, being mentally ill should not be an insult. It's a medical condition. But women are ignored on a regular basis because they're thought to be all these things, so they couldn't possibly know what's going on in their lives because they're crazy. No, absolutely not. Which is something that this film sticks it to you really well, because, Rosemary tries to keep bringing up all these weird things are happening. I don't think things are, as they are, da-da-da. And they chalk it off to, she's crazy, she's pregnant, blah, blah, blah. When in reality, yes, there are these satanic witches taking over her life, have made her have sex with the devil, and now she's going to deliver a devil's baby. So, on that, I gotta give props to Polanski. Which, of course, Polanski is notorious for his own legal reasons. I'm not going to get into that. But he is a master at directing unusual films. Another film that is one of my favorites that he's done is The Fearless Vampire Killers, which we've already reviewed on the channel before. But he has a knack for making these over-the-top films very well. So if you have never seen Rosemary's Baby, definitely watch it. It's a good one. If you enjoy movies about witches, I, definitely add it to your queue, because witch movies are not all that common. If you start looking down the list of movies about different supernatural creatures and whatnot, witches are not one of the most common creatures. Mostly it's vampires, honestly. Vampires are the big, giant glut of films about a supernatural creature. The other thing is, I think it's important to not ignore films from earlier time periods just because they're now considered offensive. I say that because if we start eliminating every single thing that has been put in a piece of art, soon we won't have art. I definitely do not agree with some of the ideas that are presented in the film. But I think it's important to understand art, understand where the writer is coming from, understand where a director is coming from, and then view or listen or see whatever it is in regards to its artistic merit. That's my little, like, lowdown on that. I'm definitely not, the be-all and end-all, but as a film fan, I think it's important for us to maintain film. Because, if we eliminate every single viewpoint, soon we'll only have one little viewpoint that doesn't match the great majority of people. That's the way I look at things. There are certainly plenty of things in films that offend me, but I prefer to keep film as film. So, comment down below with something that you find entertaining about older horror films. And until next time, bye!